been dreaming of a moment like this moment.
The glamour and tourists on Hollywood's Walk of Fame. In front of Hollywood's iconic Chinese theater, where movie stars from yesteryear and today have had the honor of putting their handprints and footprints in cement. 50 million visitors come here every year, and by the looks of things, you'd never in a million years think anything is wrong in Hollywood. But tourists don't see the other side of Hollywood. Once busy and bustling movie sets now sit abandoned. Industry insiders here say the actual production side of making movies here in Tinseltown, as it's been known, has come to almost a screeching halt.
Hollywood isn't dead, but as it's weakened, yes, it definitely does reflect America.
While film productions here began moving to other countries like Canada dating back to the late 1970s, the COVID pandemic created a huge news slowdown in Hollywood.
Stop the strike and pay us more!
That continued in May of 2023 when writers and actors went on strike for better wages.
1, 2, 3, 4! Stop the strike and pay us more!
And the situation since the strike was settled is said to only be getting worse. Projects have been canceled, leading to massive layoffs at studios here. Most recently here at legendary Paramount Pictures, that recently laid off 2,000 workers, an example of why the film community is so concerned about the future here. Because the entertainment industry here contributes more than $115 billion annually to the Los Angeles economy.
Okay, here we go, and action.
With a staggering employment base of nearly 700,000 people. Film industry workers that include stuntmen and women, to sound technicians, to camera and lighting crews, to makeup artists and hairdressers, to the people who feed them all, like catering services, and people like writer and producer Jennifer Brody, who say Hollywood today is in complete crisis mode.
Oh yeah, it's a complete crisis.
Brody says not long ago she left Hollywood because projects were being canceled and she could no longer afford to live there. So she got on the road, she says, and said goodbye, relocating 100 miles east here in Joshua Tree, California. That, she says, at first felt a bit like being on the moon, but grows on you with the peace and serenity here. Far from the glitter of the Walk of Fame in Hollywood, known among industry folks like Brody as the fake Hollywood.
It's funny though, like you go to Hollywood, that's like fake Hollywood. Like everyone lives in LA jokes that this is where the tourists go.
Brody says Hollywood today is not the Hollywood she experienced fresh out of Harvard 20 years ago as a young intern and assistant working on Oscar-winning productions.
That's the Best Picture Oscar for Return of the King. So it was this great time, and when I first interned, it did seem like everything was great. Affordable, 2-bedroom, 2-bath apartment, and I paid $650 a month.
Today, 20 years later, 1-bedroom apartments in Hollywood rent for nearly $5,000 a month in some places, while wages have not risen anywhere near the level that people need to afford that. So Brody moved those 100 miles east here to Joshua Tree to find a 3-bedroom house that she rents for just $1,900 a month. But she says she remains saddened to have left Los Angeles.
Because you could go to a cafe and meet just people who came for a dream. I would say it's a city of dreams. Whether or not they make the big dream happen, doesn't matter, they're trying, and I always thought that was cool. And I am saddened on behalf, you know, LA, the LA I left isn't the same LA anymore. The city I loved is not there, and I'm sad. It will make me cry if I think about it too hard.
Brody believes a big problem for Hollywood is the increasing use of artificial intelligence, or AI, that creates computerized movie characters on the screen and will be used more and more to write formulated scripts. That is killing the need for writers and producers like her. AI, she says, essentially devaluing creatives, from writers to actors.
First of all, it's more jobs loss. The biggest problem right now is the devaluation of creatives. It is a storytelling business. It has always been a storytelling business. You can't put a formula into AI and create something great. It will never happen. AI is a huge threat to all of us. And directors too, every single person.
His wife died too young.
Voice actors period. We're all being seen as replaceable.
But she says AI scripts cannot replace the human touch. For example, that AI, she says, could never create the famous dialogue in the Star Wars love scene between Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia and Harrison Ford as Han Solo, because Ford ad-libbed his memorable line when Princess Leia tells him she loves him.
I love you.
I know.
She says, I love you. He goes, I know. Total ad-lib. He said he just thought, what was the worst thing you could say to a woman in this moment?
And she says the movie Star Wars is a reminder of a Hollywood back then that took chances on wild ideas from humans like George Lucas.
The point is that, whether you love Star Wars or not, that it was this creative incubator where someone like him with a very wild idea, and a lot of people not believing in it, could make this thing that it's worth billions.
The unemployment rate in film and television in the United States has recently been at 12.5%, but many think those numbers are actually much higher because many film workers either do not file for unemployment benefits because they're not eligible, or they've exhausted those benefits after months of not working. Film industry economists like Kevin Clouden here at the Milken Institute in Santa Monica predict that during the next 3 years, more than 200,000 jobs will be adversely affected by industry changes and possibly eliminated. Many people here are already leaving Hollywood for other states, giving film production companies more generous tax incentives, like in New York and Georgia. Both New York and Georgia offering hundreds of millions of dollars in tax-free savings for film companies that are now better positioned to recruit and lure workers away from Hollywood with more work and better pay.
A couple states in particular have gone all in on incentives. The biggest one is Georgia. Georgia is offering well over $1 billion in incentives every year. So that's a lot of incentives and money, literally and figuratively, to go and film elsewhere. And New York is now offering twice as many incentives, nearly $800 million a year in incentives as California. It's actually more than twice.
Though California Governor Gavin Newsom is pushing to expand California's annual tax credit to $750 million by July 2025.
And there's an old saying, you want to do well in the future, you got to invest in the future.
Another major blow to Hollywood film production came during COVID, when people stopped going to movie theaters and instead stayed home and began streaming movies on Netflix and Amazon.
And streaming numbers boomed because nobody could go anywhere else. Nobody was doing anything else. So streaming became the dominant form, but without figuring out how to collect all that revenue that they were getting from the networks, from the movie theaters, from cable and satellite, all these things. So the revenue dropped.
And when the revenue dropped, paying for productions dropped. Employment dropped. That said, streaming services like Netflix generated huge revenues during the pandemic because they got more subscribers and began producing more movies and series. Hollywood's future, says Clouden, comes down to whether the film industry here can recognize that it needs to change the way it's doing business, like paying people enough money to live here.
What Hollywood needs to recognize is that if people can't afford to do the entry-level jobs, if they can't afford to do this, and I've had a lot of conversations with people, where they talk about, do I want to work in Hollywood? And they basically say, right now, I can't afford to. I can't afford to wait. I can't afford to, to do this because there's not enough work in Hollywood. So Hollywood needs to be stable enough that these people feel they can make a living in Hollywood again, and that ultimately will make the difference.
People and talent, he says, that need to come back to Hollywood.
And ultimately, The health of the industry depends on people being connected here. Those concentrations of people and talent are incredibly important for the creativity and for the industry to thrive. And ultimately, that needs to come back again. And I'm hoping they'll come back sooner rather than later here.
Jennifer Brody says her move to Joshua Tree and the rather science fiction looking landscape out here has led to new projects like her new book, A Sacrifice of Blood and Stars, a sci-fi romance. But she says she misses the human contact she once had every day back in Los Angeles.
I would say moving here, there has been sadness though, because I left a lot of friendships and friends, and I still talk to them, but it's not the same. We don't have those relationships we built over all those years, the places we worked. But there's sadness that I had to leave, you know? So what I say when you ask what's lost in Los Angeles, it's that. It's, you know, going to a coffee shop and meeting someone, and then connecting, and then maybe you make something great.
She says her life now here among the Joshua trees is a strange new adventure that she hopes might replace the buzz she once felt in Hollywood, and the friends she says she's lost touch with along the way, who are now spread to the wind.